Pretty good life for Armando Salguero. He gets to go back to Buffalo 2 times in 3 weeks. Armando, settle this for me. Ask Hutton this. When you go cover a game in Buffalo, in Orchard Park, where do you stay? Do you go downtown Buffalo or do you stay close to the stadium?
I stay in Amherst.
Okay.
And so neither one of you probably got it right.
I have a brother-in-law from Hamburg, which I think is close to Amherst, maybe.
The reason that I stay in Amherst is they have an actual Marriott, and I am a Marriott aficionado because I like free vacation points. And also, that was the hotel that the Miami Dolphins would stay at, in 1990. And Don Shula would put them there because he knew that they wouldn't get in trouble. and so that's where they stayed, and that's where I stayed, and I've been doing it ever since. The place did have a disco back in the day. I will say that for it. No longer.
Armando, 1 to 10, give us your level of surprise if the Dolphins, with 5 minutes left in this game, have a real shot to win this game, with it being within 1 score, tied, something close.
1 to 10, 5,000.
We agree, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm writing a preview right now for OutKick.com because I work for OutKick.com, as you know. And one of the things that I'm looking at is Dolphin fans are going into this game expecting terribleness, expecting the worst, expecting a blowout. And I got to tell you, I kind of understand. I get it. You watch last week's game in which Skylar Thompson played against the New York Jets and how he played in that game and how the Dolphins offense played in that game. And it doesn't suggest that they're going to light up the scoreboard against the Bills in the playoffs in Buffalo. But I look at the San Francisco 49ers by comparison. You know what? The San Francisco 49ers, like the Miami Dolphins, they're starting a 7th-round draft pick rookie. Like the Miami Dolphins, they've lost their first-string quarterback. They've lost their second-string quarterback. They are starting a player that was the last guy picked in the draft. Skylar Thompson was picked ahead of Brock Purdy. And yet in San Francisco, they're not expecting to write a horror story in the playoffs. They are expecting to go into the playoffs starting this week against the Seattle, I almost said Supersonics. Yeah.
They should be back, by the way. They should bring the Supersonics back to Seattle, to your credit.
The Seattle Seahawks, and they're expecting to, mop the place up with the Seahawks and go forward. So why is it that the narrative for one team is you're starting a 7th-round pick rookie, you got no shot, and then the narrative for the other team is, wow, this is great. You're good. Everything's good. You might go to the Super Bowl.
I think part of that answer is one's playing Seattle and the other's playing Buffalo.
Yeah, well, it's weird because the Dolphins lost to Brock Purdy.
So if Thompson gets hurt, is the backup Bridgewater or Glennon?
Look, Teddy Bridgewater right now is doing everything that he can to be able to play in that game, or at least I say to function.
Okay.
Right now, he is not functional. And so he's getting closer to that. He's hoping that by Sunday he will be there. But that's a decision that is not set in stone yet.
Matchup tomorrow night between Jacksonville and L.A. Armando, I mentioned earlier I was saving this for discussion with you. What are the odds that both of those quarterbacks, Herbert and Lawrence, come out and have a great game? Or is it more likely that one of the two comes out flat? I feel like one of the two takes a big step forward, and this is a big moment for them winning that playoff matchup and moving forward. And the other one is still kind of, we're questioning where they are. And I realize Herbert's had the perception that he's at that level already with the young crop, but this is big for him.
Yeah, no, it's enormous. And I would say to you that whatever happens, Jonathan, those two guys are just so special. And Trevor Lawrence is a year behind Justin Herbert. And you see what he is doing now, and it's just he has grown up before our eyes, and he's grown up by leaps and bounds. It's to the point where he is now he's trash talking defensive players. Like Trevor Lawrence is on the field, you guys remember the Mike Singletary moment on NFL Films where he's, talking to some other guy on some other team. He goes, "I like that kind of party."
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
Trevor Lawrence was doing that last week. He was telling some defensive player, I believe on the Titans,
a backup probably.
Maybe, you hit me hard. I love it when you hit me hard. I'm not right. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this kid, he doesn't know that he's a quarterback in his second year. He doesn't realize who he actually is. But guess what? I love it. And Jaguars fans love it. And in talking to, Doug Peterson, he loves it because that speaks to a confidence and a growth. And Trevor Lawrence at Clemson didn't strike me as a trash talker ever under Dabo Swinney. I like what he's doing under Doug Peterson. And
on the flip side, on the opposite sideline, you mentioned Peterson. What about Brandon Staley? And are you buying it's the McCarthy effect where if they lose this game, he could be out?
Yeah. That as Brandon Staley as a defensive coordinator is a very good defensive coordinator, right? But I would say to you that Brandon Staley as a head coach is a very good defensive coordinator. I'm not a big Brandon Staley guy. I thought he made a mistake last week, and now it's been proven to be fair. He played some of his stars and played them for a long time. And guess what? Joey Bosa got nicked up in that game, and they lost their best receiver for this game to a hip injury. And Mike Williams. I'm not a big fan of Brandon Staley. I think Brandon Staley eventually will show us and will show us that some guys were meant to be coordinators and some guys are meant to be head coaches. He's got a long way to go before we can say that he's meant to be a head coach.
Armando, we were talking earlier about trying to sort of power rank the games this weekend and which games would be the most compelling and the closest. I'm excited about Wild Card Weekend, but I look up and down the stretch, and there's some blowouts there. One of them probably one of the games you're covering, but one that jumps out to me that could be a lot of fun in a perverse sort of way maybe, Vikings-Giants on Sunday afternoon. Do you feel like this has the makings of a really close competitive game?
I feel that look, the Giants have been underestimated by a lot of people the entire season, including the Minnesota Vikings, who, obviously are a better team and played the New York Giants earlier this season. I would not be surprised if the New York Giants go to Minnesota and do what no one expects them to do. What they did last week, they played Philadelphia. They sat like 80% of their starters. And the reason they didn't sit 100% of their starters is there was not enough room on the roster to be able to do that. They sat 80% of their starters and gave the Eagles a game. Okay? Look, the All-Pro ballots came out today, the All-Pro teams, and part of that balloting includes Coach of the Year. I voted for Brian Daboll on Coach of the Year.
Completely agree with you. And, hey, Mike McCarthy was around that area midway through the season. He was in the discussion based on what they were doing and the fact he entered the season in the hot seat knowing that Sean Payton's available. And then we saw what happened, and part of the reason why I would put him in there is because he was doing it with Cooper Rush whenever Prescott got hurt midway through the year. But McCarthy and Prescott, one game does not make a career. But it's time for him to take off or not. Maybe he's just the guy he is, and that's probably the answer. But if he's not another step ahead of where he is currently, Armando, McCarthy's gone. I don't know. I don't buy what Jerry Jones is saying about everything's great. It's not going to be great if they lose this game.
Well, I think how they lose this game, if they lose this game, is important too, Jonathan. I think that they can't have a repeat of last year where at the end of a winnable game, they basically just brain lock and do stupid stuff and lose because of their doing stupid stuff. If they go to Tampa and they're leading the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Tom Brady comes, pulls one of those patented Tom Brady drives out of his quiver, does this and pulls a great comeback drive out of his quiver of little comeback drive arrows, then it's hard to knock the coach on the other side that the greatest quarterback in the history of the game did to you what he has done to countless other coaches. That one is not a fireable offense. But if the Cowboys come out and look like foofs and penalties galore like they've often been under Mike McCarthy, and the substitution patterns are weird and the team doesn't look ready to play, yeah, we're talking the call to Sean Payton the next day.
The one question I have about Cincinnati and Baltimore does not revolve around Tyler Huntley versus Joe Burrow. It's a simple question. Has your opinion of Lamar Jackson changed at all this season based on him betting on himself in the preseason? It's not his fault to get injured, but this is now, I think, 10 straight games from December 1st on that he hasn't played, Armando, separate of playing the first half on December 4th this year. Has it changed your opinion of him moving forward at all?
As a player, no. It has not changed my opinion of him as a player. I still think he is a great, not good dual threat quarterback. Great. Very dynamic player. Very dynamic. But there's more to players than just their skills on the field. Durability is an ability, as Bill Parcells used to tell me. And so his durability is in question now because it's not just this year, and you laid it out, Chad, what has happened this year. He wasn't available to that team at the end of last year either. And it's not that he doesn't want to play or expose himself. That is not the case. The guy is trying to get right. He has an injury that I was told it's a borderline grade 3 PCL strain. That means, according to someone I spoke with, that it's going to take him at least 3 months to be right. And we're not 3 months down the road from the injury. were more like, what is it?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. So he would have to be superhuman to be able to have that knee correct and be able to do what he does, which more than most requires that he has stability in the knees. So, no, I still think he's a great player. I just don't think he's as durable as what we thought. And the Baltimore Ravens are going to have to consider that, as you know, because they've got contract decisions to make with Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson wants a fully guaranteed contract, no matter what, injuries or whatever else may come.
Armando Salguero, our guest, he's headed to Buffalo to cover the Bills and Dolphins. Am I wrong to assume, we've been assuming all week, that Damar Hamlin will be in attendance for this game?
That's a good assumption, and I hope it happens. Not for the Dolphins' sake. That would be more bad news, right? Because I'm telling you guys, last week I was in that stadium and it was electric.
Yeah.
And then it was a thunderbolt from Naeem Hines when he did what he did in the opening kickoff. And by the way, he did it again later on. But that kind of stuff is the stuff that feeds a team. And you could see it. It was palpable on the Bills sideline. There was no moment during that game where I'm thinking, yeah, the Patriots are going to win this game. No, they weren't. No, they weren't.